here's how we go about that. So remember that we said a 0 is in a factored form like this, x minus c, okay? So if the 0 is positive, the factor is negative. If the 0 is negative, the factor is positive. I need to, thank you. I know, it's a good, okay. Okay, zeros, x minus c. If it's positive, it's x minus c. If it's negative, it's x plus c. Okay, just the more you do, the easier it gets. So here's what you're going to do first. Recognize that if I don't tell you something, if I don't say like f of 2 equals blah, 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 you're going to assume your a value is just 1. Okay, a, which is my leading coefficient, will just be 1 for right now. We're going to put it as a 1 for right now. It could change, but right now it's just going to be 1. Now, for number 1, if my zeros are 1, 2, and 5, I need to list out my factors. So if I have a 0 of 1, that 1 is positive, yes? So that means my factor has to be x minus 1. That's my first factor. My next 0 is 2. So that means my factor is x minus 2. My last 0 is 5, so that means my factor is x minus 5. Is everybody okay with that? Those are my factors. Now, I want the actual function, which means I want it in standard form. I don't want it in factored form. So you're going to start off by saying f of x equals, list out all of your factors, like so. Now, if I want this in standard form, it means I need to FOIL, it means I need to distribute. You can't distribute over more than 2. You guys only know how to distribute over binomials or trinomials, 2, not 3. So what you're going to do is you're going to distribute these 2 first. So FOIL those 2. So x and x is x squared, yes? Yes? X and negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 and x is negative x, so that's minus 3x. And then negative 1 and 2 is plus 2. When I just FOILed those, that's what I got. Yeah? We good there? Okay. Now, you don't want to forget about this x minus 5. I just need to distribute now. So x squared times x, x cubed. X squared times negative 5 is negative 5x squared. Negative 3x times x is negative 3x squared. Negative 3x times negative 5 is 15x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. All I did is distribute. Are we okay with me there? Now, what's the last thing we're going to do? Just combine like terms. So your final answer is x cubed minus 8x squared plus 17x minus 10. There's your function. Does that make sense? Plug it and go. Now, number 2, I'm going to start it and I'm going to have you do the function. If I have a 0 of negative 7, what is my factor? X plus 7. If I have a 0 of x minus or of negative 1, my factor is x plus 1. If I have a 0 of 3, my factor is x minus 3. Now, when I go to find my function, I just take all of these and multiply them all together because that's what it means to be a factor. Yes? Find this function, please. Easy? Okay. Now, number 3. What has changed a little bit? You have a fraction. Now, the first one, when my 0 is x minus 2, we know that's x plus 2, right? Now, my factor for negative 4/3 would be x plus 4/3, correct? But you never see a fraction there. The denominator becomes the coefficient of the x. So negative 4/3, the factor is 3x plus 4. Okay? So the denominator becomes the coefficient. And my factor, if my 0 is 2, is just negative 2, yeah? Now we're going to do the exact same thing, correct? So distribute. So x and 3x, this is 3x squared. 4x, 6x, so plus 10x, and then plus 8. And then just distribute again. So 3x cubed minus 6x squared plus 10x squared minus 20x plus 8x minus 16. Combine like terms. 3x cubed plus 4x squared minus 12x minus 16. The algebra is where you could have and possibly make mistakes, but hopefully not too many. Yes, no, maybe. We good? All right, what's different on 5? We got square roots. Still list them, bless you. Still list them as factors as we normally would. Now, you have 2 of them here. You have plus or minus 2 radical 3, right? So if I'm talking about the positive 2 radical 3, my factor would be x minus 2 radical 3, correct? If I have the negative 2 radical 3, this is x plus 2 radical 3. And then I have plus or minus 1. So that means I'm going to have x minus 1 and x plus 1. Now, I have 4 terms here, yeah? It is really important you multiply a couple of them together. Which 2 look like they go together? Like these 2 look like they go together, correct? And then these 2 look like they go together, right? Foil them that way. It'll make it easier. So x and x is x squared. Agree? Now watch. X times 2 radical 3 is 2x radical 3, right? Well, then you have negative 2 radical 3 times x. What happens there? You have a positive 2x radical 3, and you have a negative 2x radical 3. They cancel. That's going to happen every single time you have a radical. Because what do you always have to put in front of the radical? Plus or minus, because it's the difference of 2 squares, right? That's always going to cancel. Now you just need to multiply. Negative 2 times 2 is what? Negative 4. Radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9. Square root of 9 is 3. What operation is between the negative 4 and the 3? Multiplication. Does everybody see what I just did? So I'm going to take these 2 and multiply, and that's how I got negative 4. Yes? I'm going to take these 2 and multiply, which is how I got 3. Because radical 3 and radical 3 is square root of 9. Square root of 9 is 3. I take negative 4, and I multiply by 3. So it's negative 12. You take the 2 outside numbers, multiply them. You take the 2 radicals, which should be exactly the same, multiply them, and multiply those 2 numbers together. So there's that one. Foil this one. It's just going to be x squared minus 1 because the negative 1 and the positive 1 cancel. What do we do from here? Foil again, distribute again, right? So this is x to the 4th minus x squared minus 12x squared plus 12. Final answer is x to the 4th minus 13x squared plus 12. Are we okay with me there? Yeah. 6. What's my first factor? Agree or disagree? Agree. So x plus 6. Okay, now, this next one, I'm going to write it on another piece of paper. I have x equals 2 plus radical 5 and x equals 2 minus radical 5, right? Because the plus or minus is in front of the radical. Agree? I need these both to equal 0. So I'm going to subtract the 2. So I have x minus 2 equals radical 5. And x minus 2 equals negative radical 5. Agree or disagree? Just kind of watch what I'm doing. Now, how do I get this to equal 0? I don't want it to equal 5. I want it to equal 0. How do I take this and get that to equal 0? You would subtract it. So you have x minus 2 minus radical 5 equals 0. And x minus 2 plus radical 5 equals 0. There are your other two factors. So your other two factors are x minus 2 minus radical 5 and x minus 2 plus radical 5. Now, when you list those out, just like in example 5, we kind of put some of them together, correct? In example 6, which two go together? The last two. So you need to multiply those two together first. I'm just going to bring down the x plus 6. So now I start distributing. X times x. X squared. X times negative 2. Negative 2x. X times radical 5. So this is plus x radical 5. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. Yes? Negative 2 times radical 5 is negative 2 radical 5. Follow me there distributing? I know it takes a while. Negative radical 5 times x is negative x radical 5. Negative radical 5 times negative 2, that's a positive 2 radical 5. Now here, negative radical 5 times radical 5. Multiply the numbers underneath. What's 5 times 5? 25. What's the square root of 25? 5. But don't forget, one of them was negative and the other one is positive. When you multiply a negative and a positive, you always get a what? A negative. So this is minus 5. Now, before you start freaking out, anything that has a radical should cancel. So no radical, yes. No radical, yes radical. This is a positive x radical 5. Well, what do you notice here? There's a negative x radical 5. Those cancel. Does this have a radical? How about this? How about this? So negative 2 radical 5, and looky here. Positive 2 radical 5. Those cancel, and the negative 5 is left over. So I'm going to rewrite it to make it a little bit prettier. So x plus 6, x squared. I have negative 2x. I have a negative 2x. That's a negative 4x. I have a positive 4 and a negative 5. Minus 1. What do we do from here? You just distribute again. So x cubed minus 4x squared minus x plus 6x squared minus 24x minus 6. There's my function. Yeah? What happens if I add some multiplicities on there? What happens if I say you have a 0 at 3, but you have a multiplicity of 2? That means it's going to be squared, right? That's how we figured out when we graphed it. So if my 0 is 3, what's my factor? So this is x minus 3, the quantity, squared. And then I have a 0 at 5, so it's also x minus 5. So you need to square whatever's squared first. X minus 3 times x minus 3 is x squared minus 6x plus 9. And then x minus 5. Finish that one out, please. Did I do my math right? Okay. Now 10. Where's my first 0? -1/2 though, right? But how do I write that as a factor? So it would be x plus 1/2, correct? Where does that 2 go? Coefficient of what? X. This is 2x plus 1, the quantity squared. What? And then x minus 4 squared. Yes? I'm not going to make you FOIL that one because I want to get to the i's. I want you guys to have time to work on your homework. All right, here we go. The big thing I want you to remember is if you have an a plus bi, you also have an a minus bi. I's come with positive and negatives. Okay, it's always plus or minus. But you're going to notice every single time I give you an I as a 0, I will never put a plus or minus on it. So it is your job from right now to remember that. So when I give you zeros, like for example this one, I would suggest you rewrite it so you have 5, comma, plus or minus 3i. I would immediately rewrite it so that you don't forget that. That's important. We're going to go about just like we did before. List out your zeros. What's my first 0? 5. So what's the factor? X minus 5. What's the next 0? A positive 3i, right? So what do I do to move it to the other side? I would subtract it. So this is x minus 3i. And my last 0 is, right? So my last 0 is negative 3i. So my factor is x plus 3i. Now, which 2 must you multiply together? These have to stay together. Now, if you had done it differently and you hadn't multiplied these 2 together on number 5, it still would have worked out completely fine. And I understand that. But if you don't multiply these 2 together, you're going to get i's and you're going to get yourself all confused. So there's no point. If you have an I, keep it together. So I'm going to bring the x minus 5 down. And now I'm going to distribute. I'm going to FOIL. X times x is x squared. Yes? X times 3i is just a positive 3ix. Negative 3i times x is a negative 3ix. Negative 3i times 3i. What is negative 3 times 3? Negative 9. And I times I is I squared. Okay? What do we notice about the 3ix and the negative 3ix? Those cancel. Okay? So I have x minus 5. X squared. Now these cancel. But I have negative 9i squared. By definition, what does I squared equal? Not 0. By definition, what does I equal? The square root of negative 1, right? So if I square a square root, what happens with this square and this square root? They cancel. So what's left over? Negative 1. So you have to be careful here. You have a negative 9I squared. If I were to read that to you, is this the same as negative 9 times I squared? Yes. Don't forget to do that. We just said I squared was what? Negative 1. So negative 9 times negative 1 is a positive 9. Now you go ahead and distribute as you would before. So x cubed minus 5x squared. I squared is negative 1. Is that money for me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is your name on it?
Yeah.
Inside?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. I squared is negative 1. I is the square root of negative 1. I is the square root of negative 1. I squared is negative 1. Okay. Now, do I need to fix any zeros on the second example? Yeah, which one? 2i. So I'm going to have plus or minus radical 6. And what else? Plus or minus 2i. X plus 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Radical 6. So this is x minus radical 6. X plus radical 6. X minus 2i. And x plus 2i. FOIL that, please. Not that I know, but I'll look. No. But it also wasn't in here. There, it wasn't here today. The answer's up on the board, so check it. Did we get it right?
I said the negative 6 was positive.
Oh, careful. There's no I squared on this one. So the only way it's going to be a plus a number in here is if you have i's. Are you talking about this 6 right here?
I can't see.
Oh, because it's frozen. That's probably why you can't see what I'm doing. Are you talking about this 6 right here?
Yeah.
The only way this, since this is like different, it's like a sum of two squares, that's going to come from an I. That's the only way you're going to get a plus number in with an x squared. If you're multiplying two radicals, it's just going to be the number underneath the radical with the subtraction sign in front of it. Yes, ma'am. Great minds do think alike. All right, I want to do the last one and then I'm going to be done because you guys have 6 homework problems. I'd much rather you guys work on those than listen to me for forever. Okay, now, can I move? All right. I need to fix this last one. So I need to write it as -4 and then 3 plus or minus I, correct? Okay. So my first factor is what? That's my 0. My factor is x plus 4. Now, my next 0 is 3 plus I. What you're literally doing is you're kicking everything over to the other side. So you're pretty much changing the sign on everything. So the factor is going to be x. Well, this 3 is what? Positive, correct? So to move it over, it's going to be minus 3. This I is also positive, minus I. Then x, that 3 is still positive, minus 3. Now it's negative I, so this is plus I. Which 2 do you want to multiply together first? The I. So I'm going to bring the x plus 4 down. So x times x is x squared. X times -3, that's -3x. X times I usually put the I first because it's technically a coefficient, but it doesn't really matter. -3 times x, so that's -3x. -3 times -3 is 9. -3 times I is -3i. Negative I times x, that's negative ix. Negative I times -3 is positive 3i. And negative I times I is negative I squared. Yeah, it gets to be a lot, but like, just remember, anything with an I should what? Cancel. I have a positive ix and I have a negative ix. I have a negative 3i and I have a positive 3i. I said anything with an I should cancel. So this becomes x squared, -3x, so -6x. You have a positive 9 and you have a negative I squared left over, correct? What does I squared equal? -1. What happens when you subtract a -1? It becomes positive. So this is now 9 and this is plus 1. So this is plus 10. What are we going to do from there? Just keep distributing like we were. So x cubed minus 6x squared. Ew. Plus 10x plus 4x squared minus 24x plus 40. So x cubed minus 2x squared minus 14x plus 40.